Looking for something to read? Well, these are the books that I've written. Hop on down to the description to find the Amazon links for all 4 of them, and keep your eyes open for more in the future. With that said, on to the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I am real. No, I'm not gonna do some camera trick to make you think I've been digitized or something. I'm just here as real can get. Everything you see on this channel is real in one way or another, although there are those who say that people like me are not going to be around much longer. These days, people are ranting and raving about how artificial intelligence has gotten to the point where it can generate text, images, music, and even full-length movies. This is the future of entertainment, so say the self-appointed futurists. Why, even Hollywood is willing to embrace AI-generated scripts and keep real writers on as glorified proofreaders. This is it, the end of human involvement in entertainment. Everything is just an algorithm now. And it all feels very familiar. I don't mean that I've heard this specific debate happen before, but it is the latest variation on a theme that I have seen play out in the past. In fact, a debate kinda similar to this played out in my youth before my very eyes, and the fact that nobody talks about that particular event anymore is in and of itself quite telling. Before we get to that though, we assume you've heard of Final Fantasy, yes?
This is one of the biggest JRPGs in the world. After a string of unsuccessful games, Final Fantasy put Square Enix on the map, and its global popularity remains strong to this very day.
Heck, it was so popular it got optioned for a big Hollywood movie. Very true, but let's not forget that video game movies still had a stigma around them. This was long before Sonic and Mario would break the curse after all. In order to get people interested, this movie was going to need something else, which might be how the team behind it arrived at a shocking solution.
Ever since the success of Jurassic Park in 1993, Hollywood had embraced CGI as the next big thing in special effects, even pushing for it to replace traditional animation.
However, there was still a distinction to be made between the CGI for live-action movies and the CGI for animated movies.
In live action, great care was taken to make the subjects as realistic as possible, while full animation was allowed to look less real because, as far as people were concerned, cartoons were for children who didn't care how real something looked.
When it came to this movie, somebody proposed a crazy idea. What if they did it completely animated with CGI, but they put in the effort to make everything look as real as possible, including the humans? Such a thing had never been done before, but it was always being discussed. Somebody was going to try it at some point, so this production team decided to get ahead of the curve. This is why even people who hadn't even heard of the games before suddenly became very interested in Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
You need to understand that this really was a huge deal at the time. This movie was going to do to humans what Jurassic Park had done to dinosaurs, which was unprecedented. All the experts had said the technology just wasn't there yet, but when the first production stills were released, people were floored. Look at them. Look at the texturing of the skin, the individual eyelash and eyebrow hairs, the presence of moles and birthmarks, the hints of musculature and skeletal structure beneath the surface. It was truly astonishing at the time.
It was so astonishing, in fact, that news of it went well beyond entertainment outlets. Do you remember that spread Discover magazine did on the movie? I do indeed, and I wish I'd kept my copy, but such is hindsight. Anyway, I hope you understand the significance of what this movie was doing. Lord knows everyone else at the time did.
One look at these images, and that was enough to light the fires of futurism. This was the new face of entertainment, they said. Hollywood could now make digital actors, which meant it wouldn't be long before flesh and blood actors became obsolete. Why bother with casting calls and established stars when you could just have ILM whip up a cast who would always do what they were told and didn't need to be paid or fed?
I mean, sure, the technology of the time still required stuff like voice acting and motion capture, but it was only a matter of time before even those would no longer be needed. Collect your paychecks while you still could, all you Hollywood divas, because your days were numbered and you were soon to be replaced by pure technology. So was the mindset, anyway. I hope I've made this first point clear. Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within was the game changer, the movie that was going to completely revolutionize the medium of cinema. And yet, I'll bet some of you have never even heard of this movie, and those of you who have probably haven't thought about it in years. It's fallen into obscurity. When people talk about the history of CGI, they'll often talk about Jurassic Park, Pixar, and the Star Wars prequels, but they'll frequently overlook the first movie to attempt photorealistic CGI humans.
So what happened, Omni? How did Final Fantasy The Spirits Within go from a stunning vision of the future to a forgotten relic of the past?
There are several reasons why, Snazzy, and the best place to start is seeing whether or not those visuals delivered.
I've only been showing you the stills up to this point, but when we see the film in motion, yeah, it doesn't look quite as good, does it?
Now, in the name of fairness, I do want to say that what the animators achieved here is still impressive in its own way.
These characters are more detailed than any CGI humans which came before, and that took a lot of work to achieve. I don't want to undercut the people who made this film by calling them lazy or sloppy or anything. I genuinely believe that they put a metric ton of effort into their work.
That being said, though, let's not kid ourselves. Nobody was ever going to be fooled by this.
The fact is that the characters still look animated. Sure, they've each got an impressive amount of detail, and nobody is ever going to confuse them with characters from Shrek, but they still don't look as real as we were told they would.
It's kind of odd, really. The CGI in Jurassic Park was so good that the digital dinosaurs are still nearly indistinguishable from the practical dinosaurs, but a movie released 8 years later somehow couldn't do the same for humans and actually looks a bit worse. This had to be a disappointment for the crew, especially since they had big plans for the film's animated protagonist, Aki Rose.
As a completely original character, it was said that there were plans to have her star in a whole slew of films after this one. She even posed for Maxim magazine, which I obviously can't show you. I am running a family-friendly channel after all.
That dream was shattered when the movie bombed, so the world's first animated movie star didn't have much of a career at all.
Heck, I watched all of the behind-the-scenes content, including all of the branching segments on the main documentary, so I know how much everybody believed in what they were doing with this film, and my heart breaks for them knowing that their work was so thoroughly rejected by the movie-going public.
However, I can't really say I'm surprised it was rejected. Again, I watched all of the behind the scenes for this movie, and I can tell you that all of those behind the scenes are laser focused on the visuals. Only minor lip service is paid to stuff like the writing, the characters, the music, and so on, and even those moments still somehow circle back around to the visuals. This means anything on which the visuals did not hinge was not given the same level of priority. And that's a problem. As I said, the visuals of Final Fantasy The Spirits Within did not age well, and honestly didn't look that good to begin with. The thing is, though, that the movie could have looked like the first episode of Rocky and Bullwinkle, and that might still have been forgiven if the storytelling was good. But it's not.
First and foremost, if you're a fan of the Final Fantasy video games, check your expectations at the door. The Spirits Within has about as much to do with the games as King Solomon has to do with the Transcontinental Railroad. It doesn't have the bright anime aesthetic, the intricate fantasy world building, the J-pop musical interludes, or any recognizable characters or creatures. Heck, it takes place on Earth, which no previous Final Fantasy game had done.
Ah, great, another in-name only adaptation. Makes you wonder why they even bother buying the license.
Yet even that might have been forgiven, or at least tolerable, if the movie could function as its own thing, and this is where the issue gets compounded.
You see, the movie isn't bad per se. Heaven knows I've seen much worse. It is, however, generic. Painfully generic.
Hey Snazzy, stop me if you've heard this one before. A woman and a group of Marines.
James Cameron's Aliens.
Precisely.
It's not a total ripoff, but a significant portion of The Spirits Within feels like it was lifted wholesale from Aliens. The elite team known as the Deep Eyes is comprised of the square-jawed leader, the juggernaut black guy, the comedy relief, and the tough-as-nails tomboy, and they're with a non-combatant woman who knows more about what they're dealing with than they do. Their enemy? An unknowable animalistic extraterrestrial force prowling a rocky wasteland. Even the technology falls into that nebulous realm of being advanced yet simultaneously looking like it came out of the 70s.
To be clear, there are some different elements present. Keyword on some.
For example, the aliens are not a homogenized horde of singular entities, but a collection of ghosts from another world that was destroyed in a war long forgotten. They still behave as a single mindless horde, though, which makes this particular difference one of pure aesthetics and nothing more.
You know, that actually makes Final Fantasy The Spirits Within one of 2 movies released in 2001 about soldiers fighting alien ghosts, and I'll give it this much, it's the more watchable of the 2. I'm sorry, John, I love your work, but Ghosts of Mars was not okay.
Then, of course, we have the central concept of the Gaia, the living spirit of the Earth from which all life stems and to which all life returns.
The Gaia is treated as very important because it generates things called spirits that the humans need to collect in order to defeat the alien ghosts. Though how that's supposed to work is way too convoluted to understand or get invested in.
The most we get for an explanation amounts to technobabble mixed with spiritualism with a sprinkling of just accept it because the good guys say so. And when we finally see the Gaia, it's just an amorphous blue blob to contrast with the alien Gaia, which is an amorphous red blob.
Well, at least they add some color to this picture. Yeah, that's another thing that bothers me.
For as impressive as the visuals tried to be, the design team invoked the reality is brown trope, which results in most of the film having a color scheme derived from various shades of mud. The games use every vibrant color they can without blinding the player, but the movie chooses to be drab.
As a result, even the visual spectacle isn't as spectacular as it arguably should have been. By now, I think it's pretty clear what happened.
The crew behind The Spirits Within put all of their eggs into one basket, banking on the visuals being able to carry a by-the-numbers plot with one-note characters. They believed that just being the first to attempt making photoreal CGI humans would be enough to secure the movie's status as a landmark film, the piece that marked the advent of the digital actor who would replace the flesh and blood actor. It's as if they thought Jurassic Park succeeded purely because of the dinosaurs and not because it had a razor-sharp script with lovable characters. 22 years later, Jurassic Park is still a beloved classic, but The Spirits Within has fallen through the cracks, having flopped so hard that it's not even remembered for being a flop.
In fact, the DVD I got specifically for this review was a second-hand copy from a local movie and music store, and this was one of 9 copies that they had, 6 of which were special editions like this one, which is the most I've seen of any kind of film in that store, new or used. People, this movie hasn't just been forgotten, it hasn't just been rejected. Even the people who do remember it don't want it anymore. That's about as thorough of a rejection as anything can get.
Which sucks for the people who made it, sure, but what does any of this have to do with the AI art debate?
Well, like I said, Snazzy, this movie was supposed to be the game changer that rendered humans obsolete in entertainment. Yet no matter how many futurists pushed for this to happen, the people still ultimately said no. As a result, it didn't wind up happening. But then again, can any of us be really surprised?
Sun Tzu once said that the outcome of every battle is determined before it is fought. This doesn't just refer to strategizing, but also to how you can look back at the circumstances surrounding a battle and see how the outcome was inevitable.
When we look back to see how CGI came to replace other kinds of special effects in animation, it's easy to see how it happened.
Jurassic Park was a phenomenon unlike any other film in the 90s. Not only did it show the full potential of CGI, but every other aspect of the film was stellar to the point where even after websites popped up highlighting the various little flubs and bloopers within it, nobody cared.
This was the perfect way to introduce this new tool to the public, so it was only natural that CGI would take off as it did. Sure, there was a lot of bad CGI that got derided whenever it appeared, but there was still enough good CGI to justify its continued use.
When Final Fantasy attempted the next landmark, it fell short as a film. Everyone's attention was on the technology that would make the vision possible, and with that priority set, everything else was neglected. Thus, it was never going to leave an impact. Only one aspect was deemed important, and a multitude of weak links formed that resulted in a bland, uninteresting film. Final Fantasy The Spirits Within was doomed the moment it began pre-production. No amount of positive press about the milestone it sought to achieve could change that. The battle was lost before it was even fought.
Compare that to the debut of AI-generated content and how it has been received.
AI content had a much larger audience for its debut than CGI did, and the reaction has been anything but universal praise. The medium has its staunch supporters, sure, but it largely gets met with mockery and rejection whenever it appears. It gets even worse, though. When people say that a piece of media looks or sounds AI-generated, they never mean it as a compliment. It always means that the work feels artificial, bland, and lazy. Even I have made such statements before. Now bear in mind, that comparison is usually in reference to something that's not AI-generated, yet the term is still being used in that negative context. Society seems to have already decided that AI content is so bad that its name is synonymous with low quality.
That alone does not bode well for its future as something that will replace flesh and blood entertainers. You say that, but now that Pandora's box has been opened, isn't the rise of AI art inevitable anyway? Well, such an argument sounds compelling, Snazzy, but that brings us into the realm of futurism. And personally, I've learned not to listen to futurists. In my experience, there are 3 professions in this world where you can be objectively wrong 98 to 100% of the time and people will still hang on your every word as though it's the gospel truth. Politician, weatherman, and futurist. Futurists in particular have a really bad track record. Think about it. By 1999, we were supposed to have a permanent colony on the moon, and we were supposed to be able to ride our flying cars from work to a home where a 3-course meal was already waiting for us in a fully automated kitchen. By 2016, climate change, which used to be called global warming, was supposed to have gotten so bad that the cities like New York were supposed to be completely underwater. By 2019, all physical media like books, DVDs, CDs, and so on were supposed to have been completely replaced by their digital counterparts. And by 2022, streaming was supposed to have completely killed movie theaters, which were already supposed to have been killed by TV back in the 50s, and NFTs were going to be the next big thing in the arts. Currently, it is the year of our Lord 2023 AD. There are no lunar bases or flying cars, people still cook their own food, the oceans have yet to reshape the coastlines, physical media exists alongside digital media, movie theaters persist while streaming services bleed money, the NFT bubble burst because everybody hates them, and now the futurists are saying that technology is going to replace real people in entertainment just like they said was going to happen 22 years ago. So tell me, do you believe it? Maybe I should actually review that Simone movie, because that's actually about an AI-generated actor. Now this works better.
Thank you all for watching. If you want to see us keep doing what we're doing, you might consider doing all the usual YouTube things, as well as hopping down to the description to find links to DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, and links for the different books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Your support is naturally appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.